Our session today shall be on the 7 solid steps for achieving success. The 7 solid steps for achieving success. Our session today shall be on the 7 steps for achieving success. We shall focus on the first step today, and other steps shall be taken on weekend basis. What I mean is there are 7 steps for achieving success, and we shall focus on the very first step today, and then subsequently we shall continue with the other steps. Surprisingly, there are several route maps to a specific place or destination, which sometimes makes it very hard for people or businesses to select the most suitable route to that destination. Meaning every person has a place to go, and there are several routes to reaching that place. But it's sometimes difficult for us to determine the particular route which is more suitable for us to get there. And that's the more reason why we are hammering on this area of study, so that people will be familiar as to how or which route they are to use in life. It is relevant to identify that various activities. It's relevant to identify the various activities, events, issues, and personal goals, among others, that has a direct link with what an individual or an organization intend to achieve in life. Ability to identify your direction in life helps in knowing the path to take. There are people born to remain as employees, whilst others are to break through to become successful employers. So then, there's the need to know your path. Okay, so this session is on the 7 solid steps for achieving success, and we shall pick those steps one by one. Today's step is on deciding on what you want. Deciding on what you want in life. The very first step is deciding on what you want in life. Deciding on what you want. So it means out of the 7 steps, the very first step is deciding on what you want in life. Do you want to be an employee or an employer? Do you want to marry first before school, or school before marriage? Do you want to give birth, or you sacrifice for something else? Do you want to be in a formal education sector or the informal? In everything that we do in life, we must decide on what we want, and that is the very first step. Deciding on what you want. Now, as I said, the ability to identify your direction in life helps in knowing the path to take. If you are unable to identify your path, it will be very difficult for you to know the direction to take in life. Okay, now there are people, as I said, who are born to be employees, and there are people who are born to be employers. So let's see decision making. What is decision making then? How do we mean by decision making? Because before you decide on what you want in life, you must first make a decision. So let's look at what decision making is. Decision making is a process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolutions. Using a step-by-step decision-making process can help anyone make more deliberate and thoughtful decisions by organizing relevant information and defining alternatives. In psychology, decision-making is regarded as the cognitive process resulting in the selection of a belief or a course of action among several alternative possibilities. Every decision-making process produces a final choice, which may or may not prompt action. Decision-making is a selection of limited wants from unlimited wants. There are several wants. You are surrounded by so many activities, events, or problems, and you need to choose one or two out of the many. You get it? Decision making is applicable to several fields, including personal or career choice, politics, public policy, business, science, and healthcare. In all aspects of our lives, our operations, our activities, our daily transactions, we take decisions or we make decisions. And because you are surrounded with so many things, there is a need to pick the most important ones first before the others. Decision making can be regarded as a problem-solving activity terminated by a solution deemed to be optimal or at least satisfactory. It is therefore a process which can be more or less rational or irrational and can be based on explicit or tacit knowledge and beliefs. Okay? If you have a relative, your uncle is very sick, or your parent or your spouse is very sick, you decide to continue to work to earn income, or you decide to resign to take care of the sick person. It's a choice. And that is what is meant by decision making. Let's look at the types of decision making. At the highest level, we have chosen to categorize decision making into three major types. And we have what is called consumer decision making, 2, business decision making, and 3, personal decision making. Using these three major types puts you in a position to reuse the knowledge created through previously made decisions. Generally, decisions are made in the context of the individual or the organization or business, while consumer decision making is made in both an individual and business environment. Now, we have chosen to make this a separate type because of the common knowledge elements that can benefit decisions made in either domain. We also recognize that types of decision making can include a number of additional categories. An easy example, and one that might be included later, is government decision making. For now, we will work on the premise that a business decision making network will expose many of the same decisions and enable the access to the knowledge that can be reused for improved decision making. What I'm saying, there are several types of decision making that could be considered based on there are several types of decision making that could be considered based on outcomes includes financial decisions, legal decisions, strategic and tactical decision makings. Okay, All are possible valid types, but we will consider them as subtypes in the context of the person or business impacted. In other words, personal decision making will include financial, legal, and strategic subtypes, decisions that impact the person or individual. So our focus today will be on personal decision making, consumer decision making, or business decision making. So to summarize, a major decision making types, you have business decision making, which includes decisions that are made that determine business or organization outcomes. Business decision making includes decisions that are made to determine the business or organization outcomes. 2. Personal decision making has the decisions that determine who we are as individuals and that outcomes we create for ourselves and others with which we have relationships. This category includes what is sometimes referred to as life decisions. Okay? Now, consumer decision making consists of choices that determine our effectiveness in purchase decisions that occur in either a personal or business context. In this case, the consumer or entity can be an individual or a person within a business. Let's move on to tips for making decisions. Before you are able to go through the decision making process, you must follow these tips. Okay, these are the tips that will help you in making decisions in all aspects of life, it being personal, consumer, or business. Step number 1, I will focus on 9 steps. Step number 1, don't stress yourself, or don't let stress get the better of you. Okay? It is easy to feel stressed out and anxious when you are facing a tough choice. You might tend to rush your decisions without thinking them through, or you avoid making a decision at all because the stress has put you off your game. If you are feeling anxious about a decision, try to manage your stress so that it doesn't cloud your thinking. Go for a walk on the beach, do some yoga, or hang out with friends, socialize. Step number 2, give yourself some time if possible. It is hard to think clearly under pressure, and sometimes your first idea isn't always your best one. Give yourself the chance to sit on a problem for a while so that you can process your options and feel confident about the course of action you chose. Step number 3, weigh the pros and cons of whatever you intend to decide on. When faced with a big decision, sometimes we lose sight of the big picture. Write a list of pros and cons for each course of action and then compare them. Sometimes the cons aren't nearly as bad as we imagine. The cons are not as bad as we can imagine them to be, or the pros might make your options more obvious. So weigh the pros and cons of whatever you intend to do. Step number 4, think about your goals and values. it is important to be true to ourselves and what we value in life. When you factor into a decision the things that are important to you, the best option might become obvious. At any rate, you are more likely to end up with an outcome you are happy with. So think about your goals and values. Now, step number 5. Consider all the possibilities. Making a decision can result in several different outcomes, and not all of them may be obvious. When considering each option, don't just list the positives and negatives. Write down any likely consequences. Step number 6. Talk it out. Talk it out. It can be helpful to get another person's perspective on your issue, particularly if they have faced a similar decision in their own life. But be very careful who you talk it out with. Be very careful. Some people can turn into Ahithophel. They'll give you wrong counsel. Okay, step number 7. Keep a diary. If you feel like you are on a bit of an emotional roller coaster, it might help to keep track of your feelings by writing them down. Whatever you intend to do, write it down. Whatever comes into mind, write it down so that you can later make reference to it. Step number 8. Plan how you will tell others. Plan how you will tell others. Okay? Plan how you will tell others. If you think someone may have a bad response to your decision, think through what their reaction is likely to be. Put yourself in their shoes to help you think of a good way to manage the situation. Okay? And then step number 9, which is the very last step. The very last step under tips for decision making. Tips for making decisions. Tips for making decisions. The very last step is rethink your options. Rethink your options. If you are up against a lot of pressure over a decision, or there are some new factors to consider, look over your options again. You might decide that your original decision is still the best one, but give yourself the option of changing course. If a decision no longer feels right for you, go through these steps again to figure out a better solution. So what I'm saying is that always give a second thought of whatever you do. And when you do that and you think the decision is still not up to what you are looking up for, then you need to go through again these tips. And that is step number 1. Don't let stress get the better of you. Don't let stress get over you when you are taking decision. Okay? Don't take decision under haste. Step number 2, give yourself some time to think, if possible. Step number 3, weigh the pros and cons. Step number 4, think about your goals and values. Step number 5, consider all the possibilities. Step number 6, talk it out. Step number 7, keep a diary. Step number 8, plan how you will tell others. And then the final step, which is 9, rethink your options. Rethink your options. Now that you know that you are familiar with the tips for decision makings or tips for making decisions, then let's go through the decision making process. Okay, let's go through the decision making process, and then we end today's session on the very first solid step. So decision making process. Let's discuss. I'll take you through 7 steps, 7 major steps. Seven major decision-making process. Process number 1: identify the problem. In most cases, when we are taking decisions, it's usually associated with an issue or a problem that is occurring, and there is the need for us to take a decision or make a decision. So you have to identify the problem. What is the problem at hand? What is the problem? Look at what is happening in Nigeria. What is the problem? If truly the robbery is on a high rate, crime is on a high rate, and the government decides to combat that crime, and it establishes what is called the SARS, a police department that will fight crime, and the police unit is abusing their office, then we ask ourselves, what is the problem in Nigeria? What is the problem at hand? What is going on wrong? What is the problem? So let's identify the problem. Is the problem with the civilians, or the problem is with the SARS? Okay, do we have problem with the civilians that they don't want crime to be combated, or the problem is with the people who are combating the crime? What is the problem? Okay, so once you identify the problem, you realize that you need to make a decision, and the decision is, are we ending SARS or we are continuing SARS? You get it? So what is the problem? If it's a personal problem, consumer problem, or business problem, whatever it is, political problem, strategic problem, financial problem, legal problem, whatever it is, you must identify the problem. Now that you have identified the problem, step number 2, gather relevant information. Gather relevant information. Gather relevant information about what is going on. Okay? How come it came? Who started it? When did it start? How can we avoid it? Gather every information about what is going on. Step number 3, identify the alternatives. Identify the alternatives. In case this is not there, what next? Or in the absence of this, what next? Okay, weigh the evidence from the information gathered. Step number 4, weigh the evidence. From the information gathered, weigh the evidence. The information you have gathered, you need to weigh it and see how you can manipulate issues. Okay, and then step number 5, choose among alternatives. Choose among alternatives. Okay, at the end of the day, this is there, this is there, that is there, that is there. Which one should we pick? Step number 6, take action. Take action. Do not sit on alternatives you have. Take action. The problem we have in Africa mostly is, especially in the public sector and the government institutions and government projects, is people sleep on their jobs. People sleep on their jobs. Wherever you find yourself, in the public sector especially, people sleep on their jobs. And when you criticize them, all what they could do is to form a committee for you. When you criticize them, they will say you do not respect. Okay? People sleep on their jobs, and that has been the reason why Africa is still behind with everything. People sleep on their jobs, and I keep saying it. Take action. Step number 7, review your decision and its consequences. Review your decisions and its consequences. So once you take a decision, review it. If you have to make amendments, you make it, and then you have your final decision. Now, as I said, this is the very first. I said there are 7 solid steps for achieving success. Success is anything one does over and over and over and over. Success is not achieved by chance on a platform. Success comes with sacrifice and hard work and commitment. So, to take decisions that will make you become successful, I said the very first step is deciding on what you want. Deciding on what you want. There's a refresher. Deciding on what you want. And we went through the decision making and then the types of decision making. Remember, mentioned that the types of decision making, I limited it to 3 major decision makings. We have the consumer decision making, we have the business decision making, and then the personal decision making. Then I moved on down to the tips for making decisions. And I said that do not stress yourself. Number 1. 2, give yourself some time. 3, weigh the pros and cons. 4, think about your goals and values. 5, consider all the possibilities. 6, talk it out. 7, keep a diary. 8, plan how you will tell others. 9, rethink your options. And then finally, we came on to decision-making process. And I gave 7 steps in decision-making process. I said 1, identify the problem. 2, gather relevant information. 3, identify alternatives. 4, weigh the evidence. 5, choose among alternatives. 6, take action. And then 7, review your decision and its consequences. Our session on the 7 solid steps for achieving success today, which we hammered on the very first step, that is deciding on what you want. And that's step 1, the very first step of the 7 solid steps, that 7 solid steps for achieving success. We are done with deciding on what you want. And I believe by the time you are done listening to me, wherever you find yourself, you will be able to decide on what you want in life. People's minds are occupied with a lot. There are several of you out there, especially the women who cannot think for themselves. Your parents, your friends are those who decide for you. It is time you decide and you know what you want, not what others are telling you to do. If you are done with senior high secondary school, you want to do medicine, decide for yourself that I want to study science because I want to do medicine in future. Do not let your father decide for you because you want to be a lawyer who will do general arts. Know what you want for yourself and decide for yourself. The ladies, stop allowing your parents to decide marrying for you, pushing you into marriages, deciding the kind of man they want. If your parents do not live a good life, you are not the one who will live the life for them. Decide on what you want. Be bold and decide on what you want. And I hope by next week, God willing, we will continue on the second step, and you will by then be able to decide on what you want. Thank you so much for listening to us on this particular session. We are Institute for Leadership and Strategic Management Africa, ILSMA. We have short professional courses, which is very flexible and affordable. We are giving several scholarships for Africans, and though it is flexible and affordable, we do not compromise quality. People are benefiting from our scholarship courses, and I urge you to call us, get in touch with us. You apply and you do your courses online, assignment based. We teach you, we give you lecture notes, you read, you do your assignment, and you get your certificate. For further enquiries, you can get us on 0245 841 835. 0245 841 835. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.